My phone is telling me that we're at 5:30, and so we'll go ahead and begin. Welcome, folks, to the fifth of the series of 12 webinars that we're putting on Friday nights, Friday Night Light, we call it. This one is entitled Knowing Member Interests and Why It's Important. And like the others, it should last approximately 30 minutes. Corey Curtis, my compatriot in the Lodge Success team, who's a Lodge Success Specialist, and I will be the panelists this evening. And Brother Darren Thompson is going to manage the chat and the Q&A function, both of which are available to you. Bottom of your screen, it should be. So if you have questions, please feel free to send them, and Darren will monitor those and interrupt us and pass that along, or he'll attempt to answer it himself. We are recording this session so that it can be viewed by the brothers on the Michigan Masons YouTube channel. So by virtue of this particular application, all participants are muted and video is turned off except for the speaker in order to keep down background noise and maximize bandwidth. So we will be sending to each of you a follow-up questionnaire on this session, and please take a few moments to complete it and send it back to us because your input will help guide us in the development of future sessions and how to do a better job of this for you. Darren will also post the information in the chat session. There'll be a link there if you prefer to take it yet tonight before the session's done. So. And then follow-up questions, you'll see both Mason support at michiganmasons.org and the toll-free number of 800-321-90357 for questions afterwards. And I think that's my intro. So where's for Brother Corey Curtis, since you're going to lead it off, please take it away. I'm going to share my screen and we'll begin. There you go, sir.
Wonderful. You can. So we're talking about knowing member interests, why it's important. We want to know tonight, why is getting to know our prospects and members? Why is that so important? And pay attention to the fact that I said prospects and members, okay? So let's look at our next slide. Why? So if we recall a previous Friday Night Light, which is available on YouTube if you haven't taken a look at it yet, but we talked about connection. We want to learn who our members are, what makes them tick, why do prospects want to be Masons, why did a member join Masonry, what do they expect, what excites them about the Lodge. We also might want to, if we're a Lodge officer or future worshipful master, what skills, hobbies, or talents might these members bring to the table? How can we make members comfortable? How can a Lodge leader make the Lodge welcoming? What should the junior warden bring for dinner? What would entice a member to become an officer? Perhaps doing these things the way we've always done them turns our members off. Perhaps not, but it would be good to know for sure. Also, we want to avoid assumptions. Some Lodge leaders may deceive themselves and talk about their members or prospects like they're fish to be caught, like they're simply numbers on a tally sheet or objects in a drawer. Perhaps they say, my members don't attend because they're too busy, or because of cell phones, or because of the football game. But maybe members don't attend because they were never interested in Masonry in the first place. Well, have we ever asked what members really want? What they're looking for, what they expect, what excites them. And we ask these questions if we want to avoid assumptions. And we sometimes look to outside reasons when the reason is not found, but when the actual reason is found within our own lodge or in ourselves. And this has been going on for decades and decades. We can look in the transactions of the Grand Lodge, for instance, and see that Grand Masters, since time immemorial, have talked about distractions, the phonograph, the horseless carriage, the telephone, the radio, the television, computers. Although some past masters, especially secretaries like myself and Darren, think they can stop it, we can't halt progress. Okay. Instead, we should look inside ourselves and our lodges to find out how we can be better and how we can provide a high-value Masonic experience. Let's look at the next slide and talk about member engagement and retention. This is on the top of everyone's mind, I think, in Masonry. How do we get our members in and engaged and participating? So I highlight both prospects and members intentionally, like I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation. We want to engage both Masons who are currently on the rolls, but also have a plan to engage those who have yet to even knock on our door with interest. These processes will be useful for both scenarios, but let's take a look at those all-important prospects and new members. The first interactions and those interactions that take place in the first months of the relationship tend to shape the man's impression and his future time management decisions. In other words, those first few months are very important. When we visit lodges, Fred and I, we often hear that we need more members, that we'd like our members to participate more, that why do our new members not come back? Lodges need to take into account the induction continuum and that time spent with or in communication with our prospects, candidates, initiates, and members, and that it's of the utmost importance. If we rely simply on an investigation and a couple degree nights, maybe less than 10 hours of contact, to hook them, we are not delivering Masonry to our members. We are simply going through the motions and delivering some degree work. And as we know, this has a varying success rate. So let's look at the continuum. There it is. So we see here that we have an interested party, that in this blue here I call phase one, we have prospect, petitioned, or candidate. Over next, in the green boxes, we see an initiate, a fellow craft, a master mason. And that's what we call that phase two. In phase three, we have an active master mason and a mentor. So I spend a lot of time here on looking at the interested party first. And this, we can liken that to the first 2 steps of the 6 steps to initiation. First couple meetings to get to know the interested man. Then when an interested party decides that they want to continue with the process, they become a prospect. When they submit a petition, they become a petitioner. When they are elected to receive the degrees, they become a candidate. Now I pull these out specifically because it's an important time that we could be building a relationship. All right. When they receive the entered apprentice degree, then they become an initiate. And that starts phase 2, where we're still building a relationship, but also delivering some very important Masonic education. There, in phase 1, those blue boxes, there should be an intense time of getting to know the individual by as many members of the lodge as possible, understanding his expectations, and setting some of your own so he knows what to expect. Now, lodges may have a tendency to overlook the importance of phase 1 and phase 2. They may say, let's get them in and give them degrees. Looking at our membership and engagement decline as of late, we find that many men may be looking for more than simply seeing some nice degrees, becoming a master mason, and receiving a dues card in their wallet. So let's look at the next slide, Fred. Thank you. So here is a different way of looking at these pieces. First, we have phase 1, and that's relationship building with the 6 steps, and all the parties set expectations and understand interests. Phase 2, we continue to build relationships. And then there's degree appropriate Masonic education that begins with a mentor. Finally, cultural integration is also an important part of phase 2. Through visiting lodges, for instance, through going to lodge events, through seeing other degrees, or just attending social events and that sort of thing with the members. And finally, phase 3, relationship building continues again. If you see the pattern, that never stops. Masonic education and cultural integration continues with the mentor, even after they're a master mason. And now life and lodge application of all these Masonic principles and this great relationship we have with each other begins. And also this man can become a mentor and help others who are going through this process. So the more time, though, that we take to build relationships and connect with our members and educate them on Masonry and how to use it in their life during the induction continuum, the more likely it is that they will participate integrate, activate, engage, invest, and stay in Lodge. Not to mention, our current members have the benefit of taking part in this process. These members will be rewarded with purpose and further Masonic and personal growth. For others who are connected to each other and to Masonry, have a reason to be part of the Lodge. Now let's look at how. Our next slide. So I have a couple methods here. The first two, Meet to Learn and Mentoring. This is very time intensive, but it's also very personal. Several meetings of one-on-one, maybe small groups, highly personal experience. We want to spend a lot of time here when we're considering the induction continuum, especially in phase 1 and phase 2. We really want to get to know our prospects and initiates and ensure they are a good fit and that they feel connected to both the other members and the fundamentals of Masonry. This involves much more than getting through the mechanics of petitions and degree work, and instead focusing on building relationships with the new person and getting them familiar with the tools of Masonry. Mentoring gives members the opportunity to build relationships with prospects, candidates, and initiates, and also gives our new folks the opportunity to ground themselves in Masonry. This can take the form of reviewing obligations, lectures, and charges over coffee, or taking an entered apprentice to see another degree, or engaging them in some activity at the lodge or something like that. It's important to realize that entered apprentices are members, and they should be receiving value beyond their initial degree work too. Now, our next method, lodge discussion. This is a great way to increase participation in lodge planning, but also to get to know each other a little bit more. Perhaps we have several members that we attend lodge, we go through a regular meeting, we have a meal, but we don't talk too much outside of lodge. So it's much less personal than perhaps the one-on-one of a Meet to Learn or something like that. And maybe a little time consuming at the time, because we know that some members may be more inclined to talk at varying lengths than others. But it still provides an opportunity to see where active members, those that participate in lodge meetings or events, sit or feel about certain topics. I once had a guided session with a lodge, and I asked them to reveal some of their hobbies and some of their favorite memories about their Masonic experience. We found when we revealed our particular hobbies and things like that, that two members who had known each other for 10 years, members of the same lodge, had seen each other 3 times a month. They both really enjoyed crafting with stained glass. And now they could do it together. But I mean, this was something that, unless we had talked about it, they really hadn't known. They didn't realize they had this connection. And this is something that your lodge can potentially do and get to know each other a little more. Finally, we have a lodge survey. This method of gathering information, really to get to know your current members and new members, and perhaps members that don't attend meetings on a regular basis, or perhaps they don't want to say something out loud in the midst of the lodge meeting. And these responses are given in private and can and should lead to deeper conversations with your members. So you can potentially have a lodge survey and find out information from them, maybe electronically or in paper, whatever is more comfortable for your lodge, and then circle back and engage individual members based on their responses. Now, Fred is going to talk about this in great detail right now.
Okay, thanks, Corey. Yeah, we're talking about information collection from your lodge members, which you've established a relationship and so forth, and really getting to know them and their interests. And we're using it, frankly, for long-term planning purposes. Corey and I preach the mantra that each lodge should have a plan, and each lodge's plan should be spanning multiple years, so that its longevity and its survival, frankly, spans more than one worshipful masters and so forth. So this is one of the tools that can be used to gather information, because really what it is capitalizing on what Corey's talked about in terms of an induction process and really listening to your prospects, certainly from upfront during his 6 steps to initiation, throughout the induction process, about which Corey talked, asking now that he's a member. And in some cases, we're talking long-term members, as in Corey's anecdote. It may be long overdue since we asked a member what his story is, because every member has a story. Every member would love to tell you about what's important to him, or perhaps what his experience was in becoming a Mason, things of that nature. He'd love to tell you about his interests and his skill sets and so forth. Tapping into that can be extremely valuable information. I also would advocate that you need to keep on asking and validating throughout your relationship with your lodge brothers, because people change, interests change, certainly their circumstances change. And what I have found throughout the years is I do have a majority of my brothers that don't necessarily volunteer information unless they're asked. They're pretty private individuals, but yet if you've developed that trust relationship, show genuine interest in their welfare and in their backgrounds and so forth, they will indeed open up to you. So one of the things that Corey and I discovered as a result of doing these lodge success inventories, and we've done between David Bedwell and Corey and me, we've completed about 160 of these lodge success inventories as members of Outreach and Member Care. And one of the needs that was uncovered through the LSI process was the idea of creating some kind of survey. Now, a survey should never be a substitute from a one-on-one interaction, with a Mason early on in your relationship, but it can be a valuable way of checking in with members on a much broader and a larger scale. Now, what we found is that one of the questions we asked in the Lodge Success Inventory over and over again is, are member interests known and tracked? And in 82% of the cases of those Lodge Success Inventories, the answer was no. And it's understandable. It's not necessarily within the scope of our normal behavior. We may not have the mechanics for gathering those kind of data, reviewing them on a regular basis. And we tend to think in one-year chunks as opposed to a longevity, not only of the lodge, but the lodge planning process. But what we have done is we put together, created in Google Forms, an electronic survey that you could use with your members. Now, we also have it available in PDF form, so that if you wanted to send it out in a printed form to members of your lodge and so forth, or use just the PDF to design your own in Google Forms, that's fine. But we do also have the capability of tweaking it and entering your questions or changing the questions to meet your information needs. We can collect those data and we can feed it back to you in a spreadsheet or in graphical format. But the results of this information can help guide your forward efforts in terms of planning for your lodge. This is just a graphical depiction of what the survey looks like in printed format, first couple of questions and the like. But some example questions. The questions we'll talk about, well, how long has this Mason been active from his point as an apprentice forward? What's the frequency attendance and why? And how satisfied are they with the lodge experience? We ask about what types of events in which they're interested, what their preferred method of communication is, and so forth. These are all very important questions because every single member has a different way that they prefer to be communicated with. There'll be a lot of commonalities. I'm more of an email kind of person. Others are text. Others use other electronic applications to communicate. Some prefer to get all their information from a website and have it posted there so they can pull it down when it's more convenient. Those are all things that can be captured in the course of a survey. We'll ask things about age and their employment. It's important to know, those kinds of background information. We had more than one occasion we've had lodges ask us, can't Grand Lodge develop a central database of skill sets or those kinds of things that we could tap into and so forth? Well, that capability isn't quite available just yet. We're hoping and frankly lobbying for it, that might be something we could invest in the future. But until it's there, there's no reason why you couldn't develop your own database at a lodge level in terms of what skill sets your members have and so forth. So when somebody needs an electrician or a plumber, or having trouble with the garage door, or needs some IT support and so forth, who can I reach out to in my lodge, a trusted source, a trusted brother, to get that kind of assistance? We ask about military service in the course of this survey because it's important for many lodges for them to not only know, but also to celebrate the military experience of and the devotion to protecting our country and the like. And there are, of course, a number of awards that are available through the Grad Lodge from the standpoint of certificates and pins and so forth, can be used for dinners and other special occasions to recognize those folks that have served our country and frankly given us the freedom that we all enjoy. We ask about hobbies. We ask about ability and interest, things I've already talked about here. And I put down here at the bottom of the slide, should there be others? So if you're interested in this, in doing this kind of an event or this kind of activity with your lodge members, then please, it'll be a dialogue between Corey and me, or Corey and you, or me and you, and talking about how can we tweak the survey to address the issues that you would like to capture from your membership. Now, some few things to expect during the course of administering a survey or any kind of data collection from your members. And that is you're going to have to take some time to pre-sell the survey and its importance to your planning process and to the lodge and the future of the lodge. You may be needing to mail printed copies to those that are not comfortable with technology. It's the same guys that are used to receiving a printed trestle board, and they may even have email, but they never use it. Or they may have email, but wouldn't know how to download electronic document, and that's okay. We're talking about meeting them at the level with which they are comfortable. For those that are electronically savvy, we'll send them a link, or you can send them the link to your survey and so forth. And once they click submit, you capture those data. You also need to be prepared that you'll receive what seem to be along the way some foolish questions. So we just ask you to take a deep breath, be patient with folks. In most instances, particularly with something new, it may take 2, 3, 4 times before people get it. So just be patient with them. Be patient with each other and so forth. Be prepared for incomplete response. There will be questions in a survey or these kinds of activities in which people are not comfortable in putting down information, and they would rather not, even if they consider it anonymous and so forth. You can also expect, in some cases, a very low response rate. If you haven't done what I said in the first bullet here, in terms of pre-selling the survey, it's importance to planning, and frankly, the importance of them sharing their opinion and the fact that they're an important voice in helping shape the future of the lodge and shaping planning. So you could possibly get a low response rate, but let's say you had a lodge of 100 members and only 20 returned the survey, and you'd sent it out and been very diligent about it, and only 20 returned the survey. Well, that's 20 data points or 20 very valuable responses that you didn't have before. And on that basis, you can do some forward planning. And so we advocate that you would use these data on your one-on-one interactions as well as through the lodge survey in terms of developing your lodge plan. Again, we advocate a multi-year plan. It's important that you form a team to develop this plan and so you can capitalize on different perspectives. And this is not a lodge planning session, but I just want to introduce the fact that these data that you're collecting from your brothers can be used to plot that forward course. A point that I want to make here, by forming a team to do this, it becomes our plan as opposed to an individual's plan. Again, you can do mail, electronic returns, set a deadline for the returns when you do a survey if you're going to use that as part of it. You'll look as you start to get these data in, you'll look for commonalities or things that are alike that you can build. You've got 15 people here that all say they'd really like to have a cigar night. Well, you might want to consider having a cigar night as one of your activities as you're putting that together for the next year. If you got folks that really would like to do a golf outing, well, again, that's going to be important information to know. But I would strongly recommend that you feather in these activities along with everything else you're doing in terms of your regular communications, your degree nights, your, things like our observance of brothers who have passed in the fall, widow's dinner, anything you might do with the star, things like that. But the whole idea is you gather these valuable pieces of information that if you're looking over 2 or 3 years, it's pretty easy to feather it in. And it gives everybody a long-term projection of what you're going to be doing. It also communicates that this lodge is always doing something. It's important, and I learned this lesson the hard way, back in the old Bob Conley, David Bedwell, Dudley Davis days and so forth in the Acacia and Acacia Plus lodges. We were advocating 5-year strategic plans for every lodge and so forth. I got real excited. I went back to my lodge. I developed a 5-year plan along with some of my other brothers and so forth, came and presented. I was so proud, went back, and what became apparent to me is that they were enthusiastic about my enthusiasm, but there was no buy-in to it. So it was now Fred's plan. And now it was up to Fred to implement it. You didn't need 5 years of Fred's planning. What you needed was 5 years of the leadership's planning for this lodge, thinking about the long game. Now, there are templates that you can use to put together plans. In fact, I'm going to share one in just a second or two here. It doesn't have to be complicated, but it does have to be operational. This is not something that you do once and then you come back to it in 3 years and say, gee, how did we do? It should be something, you'll hear the phrase over and over again, it should be a living, breathing document. Well, whether it's a document or just a process or just a very, very rich discussion on a regular basis within lodge leadership and lodge membership, the bottom is it needs to be operational because, again, you will need to be changing it along the way because things change, people change. Now, Corey and I can share this with you. This is a relatively simple template for beginning a lodge success plan. It starts out with a need, an expected outcome, a goal, and so forth, and then an action plan where it's prioritized, where people are assigned and there's a due date assigned and things of that nature. But again, it's designed to get you thinking about the kinds of things that's going to be required to be successful. And we gladly share this with you in Word or PDF format and so forth if it'll get you started. It's not the be all and end all. It is a template that you can use, and chances are you may have some of your own. I know when I was talking about lodge success plans and surveys and things like that, I talked with Golden Ark and I talked with Grand Blanc and Walled Lake and Milford and so forth, and they all had their own formats for doing this, but at least it was stimulated the discussion on this and helped us develop all the things that we can share. So that kind of wraps up our overview of knowing your members, why it's important, and once you know that, what do you do with it? Okay, and so forth. And we'd be more than happy, obviously, to come out and work with you on a plan. Or if you're fine, you've got a planning process already in place, but you might need a resource now and then, give us a call. And we're the Lodge Success Team. We're part of Outreach and Member Care, and you'll see the number here as 800-321-9357, or contact Mason Support at michiganmasons.org. So we appreciate you spending some time today. We'll remind you that please complete the survey. I'm not seeing it here because I'm sharing my screen, but Darren, I'm sure, is sharing the link and he will send it out to you after this. We'd love to have you complete that and help us make these better sessions for you. We want to optimize your time on Friday evenings. 2 important sessions that are coming up. You'll see on July 24th, 6 steps to initiation, a primer or a primer on 6 steps. And Bob Conley has consented to go ahead and deliver that. So I think you'll want to tune in for that. And then something that people have been asking about, particularly around now, as they're dealing with non-payment of dues and lodge members are asking about electronic payments. You want to talk about management of the finances through the Our Lodge Page website and the OLP app. And Darren and Rob LaFleur are going to be talking about that. And if you are not already subscribed to the Michigan Masons e-news, please do so. Go on the Michigan Masons website, register if you're not already registered, but also register for the e-newsletter so that you get the list on a regular basis for these things. So I'm going to stop sharing the screen and ask Corey, did I leave anything out? Any final words that you would like to make to these fine gentlemen?
I was just, you did a great job, Fred. And although we're a great mutual admiration club, I will say that it's very important right now, especially to reach out to your members and even prospects. I don't know, maybe your lodge is meeting again, maybe it's not, maybe it's waiting to confer degrees, but it's an awesome time to really call those prospects, call those entered apprentices, call those members, and see how they're doing and build that relationship. We have an awesome opportunity right now with some strange circumstances, so let's use it to our advantage.
Well, we thank everybody for joining us this evening. Hopefully, we've captured a lot of questions and so forth. Hopefully, Darren's been able to answer them. If not, we'll get to them as quickly as we can afterwards. And we will have a hard copy of this presentation we can share in PDF format. And Rob will likely also load that in the Michigan Masons website. You can download it on your own, or you can send a message to one of us and we'll send it to you. So thanks for taking the time on your Friday evening. We hope you have a wonderful dinner, time with your spouse or significant other, and have a great weekend. Be safe.
Or did you see Mary wants to know where the cigar smoking is tonight? Larry Joseph.
Well,
You did.
I'm socially distanced right now, unfortunately. I'll waft some over my balcony.
Thank you, Brother Joe.